sniffer rats. It's 25 past 10. I'll be back a little later with an update on the day's headlines, but now we join our news teams across the United Kingdom.
Good evening, I'm Roger Finn with the latest news in the south. The parents of a soldier who died while on duty have been speaking out following the decision by police to reopen the case into his death. Private Jeff Gray was shot dead last September while on sentry duty at Deepcut in Surrey. His death was recorded as accidental at the time, but his parents have never accepted it because he'd suffered 2 bullet wounds to the head. Joe Campbell reports.
Pictured with his mates doing the job he'd always wanted. Jeff Gray was just 17 and not even out of training when he died. Today, his father, Jeff Sr., was reviewing his long campaign to get a fresh investigation, now successful at last.
The police have got to look at this with an open mind. They've got to start from scratch. They've got to re-interview everybody that was concerned with that evening, and probably more people that weren't interviewed in the first time. We've got to have ballistics evidence. They've just got to look into this as deep as what they can to find out exactly what happened to Jeff.
The initial inquiry into events here last September wasn't as thorough as it might have been, according to one Surrey detective who met with the family earlier this week. They say they owe it to their son's memory to ensure the new investigation is as thorough as possible.
A 35-year-old man is being questioned by police after a 2-year-old boy was abducted near Basingstoke. Police were called after reports that the boy's mother had been threatened with a gun and a sword. Matt Cole reports.
Armed police officers from across Hampshire were called to this traveller's site at around 7:30 this morning, following reports that a man carrying a gun and a sword had abducted a 2-year-old boy from his mother. It's alleged the man then tried to escape in this Land Rover, smashing into several caravans before giving up and disappearing on foot, taking the child with him. More than 50 officers sealed off the area and began a hunt which lasted all morning until a man was captured near the site. The man, who's believed to be from Surrey, is now under arrest and faces questions for possible firearms offences, though despite an extensive search, officers failed to find a gun near the scene.
Bear in mind that we had a firearm involved and a sword and knives. It couldn't be potentially more serious than that. And coupled with the fact that he had a 2-year-old child who we knew was out in the open in a fairly cold day for May with very little clothing on.
The police say the toddler came through the incident unharmed. Mother and child have now been reunited. Matt Cole, BBC South Today, Hannington.
School children who knew the Everest mountaineer Peter Leggett from Lymington in Hampshire have been learning today of his tragic death on the mountain. Peter, who appeared on South Today, had wanted to conquer Everest for 20 years. He was fixing ropes when he slipped and fell 200 metres. Children at the Mary Hare Grammar School for deaf students near Newbury had been following his climb, which was in aid of charity. Some of the 6th form students are preparing their own expedition towards the North Pole in July.
We're all determined to overcome our deafness. Like Peter, we're determined to overcome the challenges that faced him on Mount Everest. So we share that in common with him.
I thought his death wasn't in vain because he had raised all this money for charity, and it showed that he was determined to do something as well as help other people out.
A section of the A36 linking Southampton and Salisbury has reopened tonight in time for the bank holiday weekend. It's been closed since the beginning of April. 15,000 vehicles a day had to be diverted onto other routes, causing long delays to their commuting time. The Highways Agency says completely closing the road was the only way to repair the worn-out surface. And for drivers on the A36, or anywhere else for that matter, the RAC has just produced a fascinating new study into commuting. It reveals that commuters add about 5 weeks to their working year just travelling to the office. The cost of journeys may soak up a third of drivers' incomes. Those living in the south commuting to London from places like Reading, Winchester and Brighton are hit the hardest. The motoring organisation wants to see employers encourage home working. A Sussex company has just won a Queen's Award for pioneering new ways to grow exotic trees and shrubs. Architectural Plants, based in Chichester and Horsham, uses a foggy greenhouse to make the foreign plants feel at home. Our business correspondent David Fenton reports.
It may look like the Brazilian rainforest, but this is West Sussex, where up to 50,000 weird and wonderful plants from all over the world are grown under some very strange conditions.
This is what you call the fog. When we remove the cuttings from the plant, they are straight away starting to lose moisture. So when we put them in here, we're then giving them a very humid atmosphere so that they remain stiff and upright, so they're not actually wilting.
And it works. The company now has more than 250,000 trees and shrubs, which 10 years ago were hardly ever seen in the UK. These pom-pom trees are from Japan, and business is booming.
We have been expanding at a rate of about between 25% and 30% a year, both in turnover and profit. And if we can find the space, if we can find the room, we hope to get bigger.
Changing tastes are one reason for that, as gardeners find ever more adventurous ways to fill their borders. David Fenton, BBC South Today.
Look at the weather for southern England. Tonight will be mainly dry with clear spells. Minimum temperature 5 Celsius. Tomorrow often cloudy but bright in the west at first. Showers developing, some heavy. Light winds. Maximum temperature 13.